Welcome to another episode of the Jampack Report, today for December the 14th of 2020, and you guessed it, today we are talking all about Cyberpunk 2077 and the issues and the dissatisfaction that players are experiencing during the launch window, because if they're playing on PS4 or Xbox One, while some players are satisfied with their experience, it seems like a lot were expecting more, and to be fair, they probably should have expected more because of the marketing that has been going on around this title. Now, before we dive into the news itself, I do want to say, just because this game did not hit your expectations does not mean that it is okay to send a threat to a developer, or to threaten the entire team, or to, in any kind of way, shape, or form, be a vile human being towards the developers themselves. They've been working hard on making this game good, and on PC, you can see that's where their focus was, because on PC, the game is running incredibly well. But on consoles, it's just not hitting fans' expectations. I have faith that they will improve it with time, but there's a lot to break down here. Now, first and foremost, before we dive into the statement that was released last night, I do want to share some screenshots showing off what players are generally experiencing on their different versions of hardware. So this is a screenshot from PC. Now, of course, my video is not going to look as good as it could because this is just a screenshot that was taken off of Twitter and I'm sharing with you here today. As you see, very good looking game. Now, when you go to the version that somebody is having on the Xbox Series X, and this is reflective of my experience, you see a much lesser quality experience as compared to the PC version of the game. Now, on the Xbox One version of the game, this is what some people are experiencing. And I would say this is what the bulk of PlayStation 4 and Xbox One users who are on their base consoles, hardware, same thing, are experiencing in their playthroughs. And so if you look at these discrepancies, there's just a difference here. It's very striking. This game on PC is what was experienced and shown off in marketing. This is something that I would expect from a general console quality reduction. Even then, it's a stretch to say this is acceptable, and then this is just completely unacceptable. This looks like a game from 2009. And CD Projekt Red has taken note of that, and they have issued a statement. They write, "Dear gamers, first of all, we would like to start by apologizing to you for not showing the game on base last-gen consoles before it premiered, and, in consequence, not allowing you to make a more informed decision about your purchase. We should have paid more attention to making it play better on PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. Second, we will fix bugs and crashes, and improve the overall performance. The first round of updates has just been released, and the next one is coming within the next 7 days. Expect more, as we will update frequently whenever new improvements are ready. After the holidays, we'll continue working. We'll release 2 large patches, starting with patch number 1 in January. This will be followed by patch number 2 in February. Together, these should fix the most prominent issues gamers are facing on last-gen consoles. We will be informing you about the contents of each patch ahead of their release. They won't make the game on last-gen look like it's running on a high-spec PC or next-gen console, but it will be closer to that experience than it is now. Finally, we would always like everyone who buys our games to be satisfied with their purchase. We would appreciate it if you would give us a chance, but if you are not pleased with the game on your console and don't want to wait for updates, you can opt to refund your copy. For copies purchased digitally, please use the refund system on PSN or Xbox respectively. For boxed versions, please first try to get a refund at the store where you bought the game. Should this not be possible, please contact us at helpmerefund@cdprojectred.com and we will do our best to help you. Starting from today, you can contact us for a week up until December 21st, 2020. P.S. PC gamers will also be getting regular updates and fixes improving the game, and this letter is on behalf of the leadership team at CD Projekt Red, of course, developers of Cyberpunk 2077. This is a very complicated issue that stems all the way back to 2012, because first and foremost, no game should be announced 8 years before it is released, because then the expectation is set very high. 8 years of development is a very long time. Something that takes a long time generally comes out looking crisp and clean, and it looks pristine, refined. Cyberpunk 2077 on PC is clearly the game that the developers focused on, in my opinion. PlayStation 4 and Xbox One took a backseat. I'm interested to see the next gen version whenever that inevitably launches, probably sometime in 2021. But the fact of the matter is, that version of the game does not exist right now. We are talking about PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. And this game is simply not what was promised and not what was shown off in marketing material. Now, as I said, on PC things are looking good and I would love that version of the game, but ultimately, unless you are running the newest graphics cards and the highest end PCs, even then, you see something that's not quite hitting fans' expectations. I mean, my friend's running a 2080 Ti and he's getting a good experience, but even then, it's clocking in at around 30 or 40 FPS on 1440p. It's just a game that is basically future-proofed in a way. I don't know, it's built for next-gen hardware, including graphics cards, including next-gen consoles, and so a lot of people have been talking about the need to cancel games whenever the scope of the project is not fitting the hardware that it originally aimed for, and Cyberpunk 2077 should have been canceled on PS4 and Xbox One. But as I said, the expectation was set for the game to be released on these consoles because it was announced before the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One were even on the market. So you see a very messy situation here with CD Projekt Red. And I feel for the team because I have no doubt that they have been trying their best to make this game as good as they possibly can. But even in this statement, you see them saying and setting the expectation that the low-end version you are getting on PS4 and Xbox One will see improvements, but it's not going to be anywhere near what you are getting on PC or next-gen hardware. Now, when it comes to the refunds, this is a very CD Projekt Red approach to take because they always try and treat their players with respect, as they should, because at the end of the day, while developers might want to be independent and extend their life on their own, however you want to say it, they do rely on the goodwill of the players to continue supporting their games, and in a lot of ways, Cyberpunk 2077 on consoles is reflecting what Sean Murray and the team at Hello Games went through with No Man's Sky. The expectations were blown out of proportion. The expectations were unachievable on the hardware that they were running on, and so now it's time for the development studio to play it back and to go back to the drawing board and see what is possible. Now, I don't think that the outcome is going to be as good as Hello Games had with No Man's Sky because, again, Cyberpunk 2077 is a game that is shooting to achieve much more than what No Man's Sky was shooting to achieve. And so I think that this game is really going to be shining in about a year's time on PC, PS5, and Xbox Series X and S, but when it comes to the console version of the game, I just don't think that it's the game that should have been released. They should have delayed it or they should have canceled the last-gen version of the title. Now, when it comes to the patches that are being released, they are improving the general performance, but even on the Xbox Series X, my experience is pretty much in line with what you see here in this screenshot. I'm waiting for the next gen version that gets me closer to the PC version of the game to continue my playthrough. I've uninstalled Cyberpunk 2077, I've shelved it. I thought about returning it, but ultimately I'm going to rebuy it again eventually, so I might as well hang on to it. But when it comes to the Xbox One version of the game and the PlayStation 4 version, it's just not acceptable. It's just not. And I would love to be supportive like I usually am, but it's just unacceptable. Now, again, I want to reiterate, that does not mean threaten developers. That does not mean threaten studios themselves. That does not mean be an ass online. These guys are trying. They are really digging deep to build something cool, and it takes a lot to develop any kind of video game. But again, whenever a team falls short, understand that there are humans behind those screens. Understand that people are trying their best to make the experience that you want to play. They don't set out to disappoint anyone. They're setting out to build a beautiful world. Now, again, if you do want to wait for patches and updates, then by all means, continue holding on to your copy. But if you do want a refund, they are being issued on PlayStation Network, Xbox Live. On top of that, you can go back to the store that you purchased your physical copy from. But a very messy situation surrounding Cyberpunk 2077. And before we move on to the final topic of today's show, I do want to say, if you're having a good time on your Xbox Series X or your PlayStation 5, if you are enjoying the game on PS4 or Xbox One, then by all means, keep playing it. I'm not saying that everybody is having a negative experience, but I'm reflecting what the majority of people are saying online. Now, to round out today's show, we have a bit of a cherry on top. EA has swooped in at the last moment and agreed to a buyout offer for Codemasters worth $1.2 billion. Codemasters' board says it's withdrawn its recommendation for Take-Two's lower offer, which means essentially EA has yoinked the purchase. Following media reports on Sunday, EA announced that it's made an offer of 604 pence, approximately about $7.98, per ordinary share of Codemasters, which values the company at US $1.2 billion. The Codemasters board's recommendation for Take-Two's previously agreed offer, which valued the company at £750 million or $980 million, has been withdrawn, it said on Monday. In its own statement, Take-Two acknowledged Codemasters' decision to change its recommendation in favor of Electronic Arts. Take-Two is considering its position in relation to Codemasters, and a further announcement will be made when appropriate, it said. Codemasters is the publisher of racing games including Dirt, F1, Grid, and Onrush. The company has also recently secured the rights to the FIA World Rally Championship, and in 2019, it acquired Slightly Mad, the developer of the Project Cars series and Fast and Furious Crossroads. EA's acquisition of Codemasters is anticipated to be completed in the first quarter of 2021. In evaluating the EA offer, the Codemasters board has considered various aspects of the EA offer and considers the EA offer to represent a superior offer for Codemasters shareholders as compared with the Take-Two offer, it said. I love how they stretch that out to say they offered more money than other people. Just call it like it is. In its own statement, EA, which publishes hugely popular sports games including FIFA and Madden NFL, as well as racing series Need for Speed, said it believed the combination of EA and Codemasters would enable further growth and success for the two companies' popular racing franchises. Quote, we believe there is a deeply compelling opportunity in bringing together Codemasters and Electronic Arts to create amazing and innovative new racing games for fans, said Andrew Wilson, CEO of Electronic Arts. Our industry is growing, the racing category is growing, and together we will be positioned to lead in a new era of racing entertainment. We have admired Codemasters' creative talent and high-quality games for many years. With the full leverage of EA's technology, platform expertise, and global reach, this combination will allow us to grow our existing franchises and deliver more industry-defining racing experiences to a global fan base. Gerard Florin, the chairman of Codemasters, added, Electronic Arts and Codemasters have shared ambition to lead the video game racing category. The board of Codemasters firmly believes the company would benefit from EA's knowledge, resources, and extensive global scale, both overall and specifically within the racing sector. According to Sky News, some fund managers who own Codemasters shares had expressed dissatisfaction with the Take-Two deal because of its combination of cash and shares. Take-Two, which is the owner of the 2K and Rockstar labels and sports games NBA 2K and PGA 2K, had said it believed that Codemasters' racing games lineup would fit well within its own roster of sports games. It is not certain whether Take-Two will respond to EA's offer with its own counterbid, Sky News said. $1.2 billion is a lot of money, but Codemasters is a team that is making some very impressive games, and it's very interesting because of Electronic Arts' current position in the racing genre. Obviously, Codemasters' bread and butter is racing, and Electronic Arts currently has a Need for Speed game in development, but the past few releases that you have seen from Electronic Arts in the racing category have not been good. They just haven't really garnered that same kind of fan appreciation and admiration that previous titles had. And so you see a shift. Perhaps they are going a Microsoft route where it's easier to buy the right team to make the game that you want rather than to cultivate a team to make the game that you want. Because if it's already working, then if you have the funds to go ahead and make that work for you, then I suppose they very well can. Now, personally, these two giant corporations are pretty much equal in my mind. Take-Two, of course, is a monumental giant. Electronic Arts is a monumental giant. And when it comes to EA, they certainly have more experience in sports titles. Now, that can be taken a lot of different ways because sometimes EA is just, quite frankly, not great. If you look at what's happened with FIFA and Madden, the games are generally the same year after year after year. So what direction that leaves Codemasters is yet to be seen, but it is very interesting to see that EA has swooped out and absolutely just stolen the bid from the team at the team at Take-Two for getting Codemasters. But we will see how it all shakes out in Q1 of 2021. But that rounds out today's episode of the Jampack Report. If you enjoyed today's show, drop me a like down below and let me know what you think about Cyberpunk 2077. Do you think it's a good move to offer refunds? Do you think the game should have been canceled on last-gen hardware? Are you having fun playing it? Would love to hear your thoughts. But until next time, you guys have a fantastic rest of your day. I'll talk to you soon, and peace.